Hello, everyone. This is Ernie Humphrey, the CEO of Treasury Webinars. I would like to welcome everyone to our webinar today, Optimizing Working Capital, Delivering Business Agility. I would like to thank our partner for today's webinars, Levantor, whose strong commitment to thought leadership helps us make this webinar possible. And they also share my strong commitment to serving the Treasury and finance professions. Levantor has a very innovative platform that allows companies of all sizes to deliver business agility through optimizing their working capital. So just a few housekeeping items. If you'd like a certificate of attendance for today's webinar, you'll have to answer all the polling questions and remain on the duration from the webinar. If you would like a certificate of attendance, please send an email to ernie@treasurywebinars.com. Again, if you'd like a certificate of attendance or if you'd like a copy of today's presentation, please send an email to ernie@treasurywebinars.com. I appreciate everyone's consideration in answering all of our polling questions here today and taking the short survey at the end of our webinar today. So let's go over a little bit about our journey today. So we're going to talk about how owning the cash conversion cycle delivers business agility. And so we'll really talk about tools that you already have at your disposal. A lot of it's about taking more control over your cash inflows and outflows. And then if you need that excess capacity, of course, getting some outside funding is certainly a way to do that. But there's obviously a lot more business dynamics going on. COVID, of course, and we have, of course, the unrest, geopolitical issues. And so companies are probably going to need to take a look at some exposures, especially those who are manufacturers, looking at maybe having higher levels of inventory than you might have had in the past. And of course, among all the other things, we have really some just basic transportation issues and all those good things. So it's an important time to be on top of your cash conversion cycle and staying on top of what's going on. Having good relationships is going to allow you to have make more informed decisions, right, about things that you might want to be doing to mitigate your risk from your supply chain, being able to supply your customers, and also on the other side of it as well. We'll talk about some supply chain trends. We'll talk about how to take advantage of opportunities and navigating your market dynamics by owning your cash conversion cycle. We'll also wrap things up with some recommendations for action and some key takeaways, which I think are important for all webinars. And of course, as always, we're going to endeavor to offer you a unique webinar experience, deliver content in a way that's a little different than you've seen before. We're going to have a lot of content, as always, and we're going to try and make you laugh and smile, because we all need that in today's world. And I want to once again thank you for taking your valuable time with us today. And so let's take a look at, just really a high level, see what the CFO priorities are, and just see how optimizing working capital kind of fits into those priorities. So PwC Executive Pulse Survey, just found this today from January 2022. It really was taking a look at how companies are increasing investment and looking at top drivers of growth and the importance of it, right? Is it very important? Are you going to be investing a lot in 2022? And so I really highlighted 3 areas here, but I do want to mention that I've seen this across multiple surveys as far as driving growth for CFOs, and it's hiring and retaining talent. And so I think that's incredibly important. We will focus on that on future webinars, and at Treasury Webinars, we have the Treasury Professional Development Virtual Forum, which is coming your way on March 17th. We'll also touch on that. So back to business here. This is really important. So obviously look at improving supply chain resilience, 50%, right? And this was in January. I would imagine the next Pulse survey from PwC, that number will be even higher with all the unrest going on with the conflict in Ukraine, and hopefully that conflict will calm down a little bit. And then we also have capitalizing on digital transformation initiatives and improving your supply chain resilience and taking more control of your cash conversion cycle is definitely what I would consider a digital transformation initiatives. Sometimes I think that people try and make it overly complicated. Those of you who have heard me talk about finance transformation, I think the most important finance transformations that can happen for any company are taking control of your cash conversion cycles, and that often incorporates investments in optimizing your AP, AR, and your ERP operations as well to control that inventory. And then the third one down, increasing agility to better operate in a turbulent business environment. And so that's really what we'll talk about today, how you can optimize your working capital. And so these are actual results. Sometimes I hit the topic on the head. And so hopefully that really shows you why this is important. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and do our first polling question. First of all, I just want to see how I can better spend our time today. So please answer your question as you see fit. And so some of our content might be a little more relevant to you if you sell products and services. Of course, you'll be able to connect the dots if you're selling services as well, but it's certainly as we talk about supply chain, that might be a little bit different. Myself, I have a lot of experience in a manufacturing environment as the Treasury and finance professionals, but fear not, if you're in services, I know you will find the content relevant for you as well. So let me go ahead and I'll give you a few more seconds. Please go ahead and just touch the button. I hope you're paying attention. I hope I didn't put you to sleep yet. It's a little early for that. So let's go ahead and give that a few more seconds. Then I'll just go ahead and comment on it. I won't really share the results. This is just for me to help me figure out where to focus our valuable time here together. And as always, if you have any questions about the content, please follow up with me directly after the webinar. Happy to answer your questions, and some of your questions may be best answered by my friends at Levantor. So let's go ahead and close that. And so I will share with you that we have a good mix of products and services, and we do have a meaningful amount of you who are only in the services game. But again, fear not, this will be valuable to you as well. So let's talk about how you deliver business agility by owning your cash conversion cycle. And one of the things that I want to stress here is really making data-driven decisions in terms of how and when you pay and controlling how and when you get paid. And so really looking at optimizing the timing of your cash inflows and outflows. And I know that we're not all wanting to work at a finance company and try and make everybody a profit center, but I think it's important that we look at the timing. So I think there are opportunities that companies have to better utilize their cash inflows and manage their outflows in a more strategic manner. And so what really gives us a lot of, I would say, we like to say dry powder, right? The more we can control how and when we pay, right? We can control the timing of when our money is tied up, and for those of us in manufacturing is tied up in inventory, right? And then control how and when we get paid, and we can get paid sooner. And part of around the AP and AR side is just getting predictability into our cash inflows and outflows, which is incredibly important because it allows us to make the best decisions possible. You know, and there are dynamics here, right? So we may need to make adjustments depending on our DPO and DSO and our inventory and our optimal targets there as well. So this control gives us flexibility. And of course, we want to know when we need to make borrowing decisions, what's the timing of that. Also, that predictability helps us mitigate any risk exposures and helps us from taking on and/or interest rate risk and/or currency risk. And so some of this stuff may seem kind of basic, but I think it's really important. A lot of us may not have been in the weeds lately. And so really, this is what I'm getting at, in that there's a lot of horsepower there in terms of AP, right? Your inventory. And of course, we'll talk about how technology plays there. And all around the wheel, what I'll say, as I say in almost every webinar, you can't manage what you can't see. So for me, the first rule of technology is to allow visibility, 360 visibility into all parties that impact all these different areas. And that includes maybe some outside parties, consultants, your customers and suppliers, where it makes sense to give that visibility. So we need to be managing all the interactions. We need to have access to all the history. We need to invest in optimizing our relationships. The better relationships we have with our suppliers, the more control we have, right, of how and when we pay, and the better relationships we have with our customers, the more control we have over how and when we get paid. And also a part of each of those sections of relationships is having authentic communication and knowing what's going on. And so when you have relationships, when you can be honest with your suppliers, you might have to delay a payment. There's something going on. Maybe you're impacted by what's going on in Russia, Ukraine, and sanctions and things of that nature. And on the accounts receivable side, wouldn't you like to know from your customers, right? If that money is not coming in, and you have to have flexibility. Maybe that money is not coming in, and you have to have a funding resource, right, available to you to adapt to those changes. And we'll talk about, again, an innovative platform out there by Levantor that helps companies get some business agility there. So just a little level set here. Now, I know I'm going to bore you a little bit, but I have to use an equation. I'm an economist. Don't hold that against me. So just a level set, right? DSO, DIO, and DPO, in case I use those terms. I'm sure you've all heard them, but I'll go over them anyway. DSO, I mean days sales outstanding. We're really looking at accounts receivable, inventory, manufacturing side, your turnover, and then your days payable outstanding, how long you are holding on your money before you're paying your suppliers. And so again, it's all about dynamics and control. So there's really a lot of different things going on here, but I like to talk about dynamics in terms of things you can control and things you can't control. And so things you can't control, probably will use the word endogenous. Sorry, I'm an economist. Things you can't control, exogenous. And so obviously there's a lot more exogenous things going on in today's world, especially over the last few months, and of course the last couple years, as far as COVID and the continuing impacts of that are concerned. And I'm sure there are other endogenous or exogenous factors that are coming along the way. These white swan events that we used to talk about so much, I don't know if those are really going to be considered white swan events. We're just looking for the next one. It's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. And what we used to call a white swan event is probably coming sooner rather than later. It's no longer a once in a generation, and it's going to be once in a week or once in a month, unfortunately. So that's why we need to be cognizant of having that business agility, right? It's incredibly important. And so we're going to take a little walk in the weeds like I often do. And so these are tips that you can use. Again, the first thing that we want to do before we look at some sort of borrowing that we might need to do, or factoring, which is kind of the same thing in a lot of ways, is let's optimize what we do right now and see what we can do before we start looking outside. So you obviously want to have tools in place in case you need them, so that's important as well. So let's talk about AP success. And I talk about AP and AR success in any environment because as we all know, I've talked about it too much already, there's so many dynamics going on. It seems like there's a lot more things that we can't control in the past, and so we need to be able to respond and react and do scenario analysis and be ready as well as we can be. So we need to define AP success just in any department, no matter what you do under the umbrella of Treasury or Finance, Office of CFO. What is success? What does it look like? What are the metrics, KPIs? How do those align with the goals of your company? And in some sense, the goals of my company, at least for finance, and I think let's take it to the top. We need to start looking at how we measure business agility, right? What's our ability to respond and react to changes in market conditions? You need to understand the skills of your AP team. I can tell you from research, it's probably this way at your company. There's more that's expected of AP teams in 2022, and there's a lot more strategic responsibility coming from your AP team. So if that's the case of your company, you need to be empowering them. You need to understand, right, the skills gaps, how you're going to empower your team leader, your AP team leader, whoever that might be. It might be your AP manager, maybe it's up to your controller, how you're going to make sure you have the skills you need, but also the technology that you need. And so part of that is understanding your current systems. And I'm happy to report that a lot of companies, more than I thought, have been upgrading their accounts payable related technology, AP automation, whatever you want to call it, systems, even during the COVID crisis. And I think we all can see now that with cloud-based systems, it's possible to do a fairly seamless implementation, even in a remote environment. So those are the first 5. And then 6 would be, again, this is a key role for technology. Look at the time saved, time spent on non-value add activities and accounts payable. What you need to do there is look at not only the people that you would think of moving the paper and documents, but what about the approval process? What about your managers who are approving things, reviewing things? What about your audit team? So look at the time spent from P2P, and you can also look at that. I always think it's outside P2P, but I always consider it. I consider supplier onboarding. That should be part of the scope as well. And also on the backside, when payments are made and actually out the door and recorded in the GL. You should assess your current relationships with your internal AP customers. Where are you providing the information? One of the key places you're going to be providing information, hopefully, is Treasury and your FP&A folks to understand payments, and especially the amounts and the timing, and especially if you have currency exposures, that's really important. You should understand the impact of AP actions on supplier relationships. And so let's make sure that our AP team has the technology available to allow them to collaborate. We want to remove asymmetries of information. We want to empower our team not to communicate without a purpose. So some of the AP actions that happen quite often right now impact supplier relationships, and with the right technology, they don't really need to happen. So hours spent on the phone arguing about invoices or terms and things of that nature are often not necessary when you remove asymmetries of information and invest in those relationships. AP should collaborate with Procurement and Treasury to take more control of payments, and sometimes that control is somewhat dictated in our contract, and so we got to make sure that we have visibility into our procurement contracts. More companies that I've talked to are actually embedding things in the procurement contracts to almost force people to not, to get rid of checks and go to electronic payments. And so let's take a look there. Let's look at the terms there as well. And so we need to have visibility into all aspects. For me, I'm all about the cash conversion cycle. And to me, I believe that AP should report up through Treasury, if not both Treasury and Procurement. Now, maybe a different scenario if you are a global manufacturer, and then you may have a C-level position where that procurement falls under. And then we want to invest in relationships. We have to empower our AP team we have to learn how to get along with each other. We can't be managing things in silos. Teach folks how to collaborate effectively within and beyond accounts payable. And then externally with suppliers and any service providers and any tech providers. And so we need to make sure that we're investing in those relationships. The better those relationships are, the more control that we have over how and when we pay. And also we have more, I would say, goodwill with our suppliers if things are changing on our end, or maybe we identify opportunities to do some dynamic discounting. We obviously want to take advantage of existing discounts, which we'll talk about later. But in accounts payable, we need to be mindful of those relationships. Again, it's always important, obviously, controlling because when the timing changes, that changes our relationships, and we can optimize that timing, and we can actually add value to our suppliers if we help them and understand their business and offer them resources as well, especially in terms of dynamic discounting on our side depending on the cost of capital. So one of the things we need to understand and educate everybody in the office of the CFO about is the value of money, right? What is the value per day? What's the opportunity cost of holding on to that money, having money tied up, or letting that money out the door in terms of maybe taking that discount? But that all depends on what's the opportunity cost of capital? How much does that cost us? Some companies, quite a few, that's in terms of what they have in terms of their borrowing rate. So cost of capital, that's another whole webinar. And so I just like this graphic, and a lot of people like it in terms of empowering AP success. I just like this because it goes along with COVID, and I think COVID has really helped folks understand the value of accounts payable and the strategic value they can offer. We want collaborative technology to simplify communications with internally and externally. I talk about this with everything, online accessibility. You got to make it easy for AP approvers and management or suppliers to connect from anywhere. A lot of what we'll see from AP, you can just plug in AR, or for P2P, you can plug in order or OTC. And I thought I was going to have a little 80s moment OPP there. Visibility tools to see the entire P2P process. Again, activities, statuses, ownership, that creates accountability and transparency. And then we have intelligence, and so we talk about reports. Data is just data, and reports are just reports unless they impact decisions or inform better decisions. So that's what intelligence is. And let's make sure that we have a reason to send out reports. Let's understand the audience and what they use the reports for, instead of sending out reports just for the sake of sending them out. And then we want to have diligence to enforce internal controls. We obviously want to send payments out as efficiently as possible and optimize the timing, but we also need to understand we need to do it safely. So what are the fraud risks? And also it's really important, obviously now, on the compliance side of things, especially now with sanctions going on across the globe it seems like it's going to be just about everything involving Russian banks as a counterparty. And so you need to make sure that you are up to date on those compliance issues. There are technology providers in the AP and payment space that have software that is what we call sanction screening. And so we want to make sure that we are not violating any laws on that front. And so, we do want to look at, and that may also cause us to go back and look at our contracts as well, in terms of the procurement contracts that we have, and see what kind of flexibility that we have as well. So that's the AP side. And so the better relationships that you have, right, you can take more control of when you're paying suppliers. Also, how you're paying suppliers also means that you're going to do so more efficiently. If you do it more efficiently on the processing cost side, you're going to save money, right? The more money that you have, right, that gives you more flexibility. The more cash that you have, the more of a cushion that you might have, and might be able to avoid borrowing. So delivering AP success, the bottom line, your company, the office of CFO, treasurer, controller, VP of finance, director of finance, commit to understanding the AP challenges that have and will arise by, again, I know we've been going on this while, COVID, but what about the geopolitical issues? Okay, what's happened now? We don't want this to happen, but what happens if for some reason we have a broader conflict across Europe, and you're sourcing product in Europe, and then that could cause delays there? What's going on in the transportation industry? I was just reading an article today, what's going on at Maersk as far as the logistics side. So make sure that you're staying on top of your game there. A customer service level mentality for AP for all parties involved in your process, and also to your suppliers as well. You should position AP to add value across the enterprise. As I said, survey results are showing that companies doing that, but you have to make sure that you have the people in place, right, and you're giving them the right technology, and you're investing in their professional development, and then invest in the technology you need. Now, and I say with the provider you deserve, And so we all hear a lot about customer success. Well, for me, someone has to prove to me what that means, right? That's a big word, customer service. When you say success, are they actually committed to the success of your company? Do they understand what you need now, what you need in the future, and are they making sure that you're realizing all the potential benefits, the dimensions of the value proposition that they sold you on that as well? And so let's go ahead and do another polling question, just kind of curious in terms of what people are needing to do or choosing to do in terms of DPO before we flip over to accounts receivable. Has your DPO gone up over the past few months? Will it go up the next 3 to 6 months? Has it gone down over the past 3 to 6 months? Will it go down the next 3 to 6 months? So please select the one. I'm really more interested if two of these are both applicable to you. I'm really interested in will it go up the next 3 to 6 months, go up or down that 3 to 6 months. So just give us a little look there. I didn't word that one optimally. So just, those are the ones that I'm really looking for. So I'm just looking to see, again, where you stand depends on where you sit, right? It's just interesting to see what we can see, kind of if there's any trends involved. And then I'll take a look at the survey data and share that, socialize that on LinkedIn if I see some interesting trends. I'll give you a few more seconds here. Interesting. Let me go ahead and close that. And let's go ahead and take a quick peek. And so interesting to see that we've got, 40% has gone down or will go down over the next 6 months. But that being said, if I were to share with you the breakdown between manufacturing and service only, we have pretty close to that 40% number of those that are only in the services business. And when I look at the correlation there, I'm going to imagine that on the manufacturing side is where we're probably going to see that. But the other side of that could be that DPO is going down if companies are taking advantage of existing discounts and doing some dynamic discounting. So that would be useful as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to share with us. All right, let's go ahead and do a little deep dive here in terms of AR success. We'll go through kind of the same exercise. Again, some of these things will be similar. I won't delve into them too much again, but it's all about people, process, and technology. Do your people have the right skills? Can you uptrain them, or do you need new to look at acquiring new talent? What about at the top, success? We need to understand what that is, communicate it, socialize it. They need to align with our company goals, and they should, when we're defining AP success, AR success, Treasury success, the CFO should be involved in those conversations, in my opinion. So if you're a CFO, you should want to be involved in those conversations. And then we need to look at that technology gaps and assess the needs. And then obviously we need to understand where we're at, and we need to right size our technology. That's incredibly important on the AR side. Again, understand time spent on non-value-add activities. I haven't seen that too much in terms of metrics, but I'd like to see more departments looking at time spent on value-add activities. First of all, you have to track it, and then you have to manage it. And then, of course, as you invest in technology, that should be a key piece of your ROI, and then I'll give you a way to quantify that ROI. Relationships with internal AR customers. This is important. Impact of AR actions on your customer relationships. And so I've talked a lot about this since COVID has taken hold, about how this is more important than ever. Each interaction is important. Companies should be monitoring the tone, frequency, and purpose for all communications with your customers. And we need to collaborate with sales from the office of the CFO to manage those relationships. We need to collaborate with procurement and treasury to take more control of payments. We need to invest in those relationships within and beyond AR. Survey data from what I've seen, AR is managed even more in silos than AP in terms of collections and other other areas, collections and deductions in different areas. So we need to make sure that we're not operating in silos and that there's communication within the AR department and with sales and others that impact the customer relationships. I talk about this. I know it's easier said than done. I would like my CFO to have relationships with the CFOs and my biggest customers, and it's not about them trying to get money. It's about them building relationships and collaborating and maybe sharing some professional development opportunities as well. And then we want to have good relationships with our customers and our service providers as well. Of course, we want to have them with our suppliers as well. And then just in response to market dynamics, done a lot of content on the AR side because obviously there was a lot of uncertainty in terms of what COVID has done, and now there can be a meaningful level of uncertainty given the geopolitical landscape here. Be on top of your internal communication in terms on your AR side. Just make sure you want to make sure that you are on top of and have the right metrics around your customer categories, your aging balance, and then your at-risk cash, which some of those things we'll want to look at those credit limits, especially by countries and markets. And so now I'm sure what you'll see is that you may have some indirect risk in getting paid just because of the dynamics between some of your customers and what's going on in Ukraine and some of the sanctions that are going on. You should have a realistic view of what can realistically be collected if you get to that point. Again, where you stand depends on where you sit. You should know which customers you can talk to, right? Be honest with, hopefully you can be honest with all of them, and they will be honest with you and they will deliver. Bad news, you should understand which customers are probably most affected by what's going on and what's coming. So let's be in communication with them. For me, I'd rather know that I might get paid later, maybe 20 days later than not knowing at all. That it's going to be 90 days until I'm paid, and make assumptions on that and make bad decisions in terms of borrowings and FX trades and even some hedging programs. And then identify which customers are most at risk. And then we might have some extra care with them, and we might have someone a little more senior reach out to them who understands their business and relationship. And this is where those sales relationships are really important. So again, just in terms of the cash conversion cycle, just for those of you in Treasury, you should be working closely with everyone that impacts, right? How and when you get paid and how and when you pay. So we should be working with AR and AP. I think for me, what I've seen in manufacturing historically, the relationship has been closer on the accounts receivable side. But again, owning that cash conversion cycle to me means owning the timing of those payments. And it's not that we're dictating to folks what we're doing. We want to be informed. We want to have influence, right, and what's going on, and people need to understand the impact that their decisions are making, and the importance of the timing, and the importance of the system not dictating our business practices. And so for me, we did things. I don't know if there was enough information, but there definitely wasn't a big strategy about, okay, there's a payment run on Thursday every week. There's another payment run. Well, there's probably an awful lot of value being lost if we didn't look at, right, what is the timing of those payments? Are we taking discounts? How are we making those payments, right? And then on the accounts receivable side, how are we managing those risks, those country risks? How are we communicating with folks? How do we get more predictability into when we're going to receive cash based on the relationships, all the dimensions of that relationship, which we probably don't have access to. Again, this communicate with your customers. I talked to a lot of CFOs the last couple of years, and they've all said that they've communicated more with your customers, and that's a good thing. You should realign on expectations. So if expectations are going to change, we should be reaching out to customers and you want to, if possible, you want to be understanding to them. You don't want to let them to use it as an excuse, but you may see that, okay, my customers are not going to be able to pay me on time. I don't know how long this will take. I might need an alternative source of funding that's there that I can tap into, that I can scale, or maybe something you weren't expecting where, hey, I need an alternative source of funding. Is this something I can get in place within the next, 4 weeks or so? And that'll give me another tool in my toolkit, and there might be a way to just add to what I have in my existing sources of funding and my exposures as well. Again, communicate, work with customers if you have to have interim payment terms. And then this should go without saying, but right now, even the last couple of years on everything, times of crisis are when relationships are forged. So act like a business partner, right, instead of a transaction, and that will come back to you. In almost every relationship, at one point somebody has the upper hand, but life usually shows us the other side of that. So how you react during a time of crisis, karma happens quite a bit in business. Maybe not as much as it should, but it can happen. And I wouldn't say suspend your usual activity. Maybe that was more true when COVID first hit, but prioritize activities according to your business needs. And then if you get to this point, target the highest amount to be collected, and then look at, you can reprioritize those communications. So I just wanted to convey to you things that you can do, right? The better relationships you have with your customers, the more predictability that you will have, right? Not only getting them to pay you, but when. And so as we can start to massage the timing of those cash flows, right? So maybe if we're not going to get money in, maybe there's a set of customers where we can hold off paying a little bit more without missing discounts, right? But then we can go to the other side. But okay, what's the cost of missing a discount? And you might actually want to borrow money, right, to take that discount because your cost of capital might be less. You might want to look at dynamic discounting, right? Just because you want to take that discount and the cost to you is less than your sources of funding. So look at that opportunity cost. Some more, I think, are very valuable slides. Again, if you'd like a copy of today's slides, please send an email to ernie@treasurywebinars.com. So we own Office of CFO, Treasury leaders, finance leaders. Understand your company's AR operation, define it, make your customer relationships more than just transactional, invest in managing relationships within AR and Treasury, understand the impact on customer relationships and finance and Treasury. Yes, you have an impact on customer relationship. You need to invest in your team and their skills and technology. You want visibility, right, for your senior management. And I think some people are starting to see this. I think it's great. They're going to want visibility into the cash conversion cycle. They're going to have questions. We need to enable scenario analysis into the type and timing of our payments going in and going out. We need to balance our customer expectations and our business objectives. Again, collaborate and then empower and engage your more remote workforce. I haven't seen any surveys that say that people in the Office of CFO are going back to the office. Not that that's not going to happen, but there are going to be folks that work remotely. There was a survey I saw, even in accounts payable, which surprised me, that I believe 30 or 40%, people said 30 to 40% of AP staff will continue to work remotely, which quite honestly shocked me. And so make sure that you are empowering your AP, your AR team, and any of your departmental leaders to teach them how to manage people remotely. It's a different skill set. It's a different skill to work from home skill, but it's also a different skill to manage people remotely. So let's shift gears a little bit. Level set here on our DSO. Apologize, I have a limited number of options, and I should have an option that says stay the same. So that's my fault. So has your DSO gone up? Will it go up? Has it gone down? Will it go down? Appreciate everyone's consideration and answering the polling question. Again, those of you interested in receiving a certificate of attendance for today's webinar, you have to answer all the polling questions for me. those of you, everyone else, please just go ahead and click the button. It helps with some context and really helps in survey results. Everybody loves survey results. And so I'd like to be able to share those and socialize those on LinkedIn and do a better job of that this year. Again, if you have any questions, I'm happy to follow up with you after the webinar to address those questions and discuss anything in further detail. So let me go ahead and leave the polling question up just for a few minutes here, or a few minutes, that'd be too long. I was going to start doing my countdown, but the NCAA tournament is not here yet. I'm waiting Sunday, so I'll do it anyway. 3, 2, 1. I guess we're in the conference championships this week, so we're all there. All right, let's go ahead and close the polling question. Let's go ahead and share the results. Similar on the DPO side. And so DSO is gone down. That's good. And I would imagine that probably a strong percentage of that might be those in the services area, but I will do some investigation there and let everyone know, socialize those results as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time to answer a polling question. I really appreciate it. All right, so let's just take a little view. Let's look at some supply chain research, just some diagrams here. I love these. It's hard to find good ones, so that, if nothing else, I can share those with you. And so one of the things I think is interesting, it helps you if you're in a silo in any way, really understand all the dynamics and the mechanics. I think I've tried to do that throughout the webinar, is to just show you all the levers, all the bottlenecks, all the things that can impact, right? The timing of payments and the timing of when you get payments in, and that's important. And then at the same time, we should be looking at the efficiency of applying those payments and getting our cash in the door as well. But again, more of a manufacturing focus when we talk about supply chain, the supply chain, raw materials, manufacture, logistics, delivery, and then getting those to our customer and then our customer chain as well. This is a different view of the supply chain. I like this view as well. And so again, some of the things that we want to look at are, what especially to me, as I look out in terms of I want to make sure that I have the product available for me, right? I want to be able to make sure that if the demand is there, I'm going to be able to meet it. So we may have to invest more and have more in inventory just so we're ready, especially just in terms, if you're in manufacturing, just in terms of the delays in getting things sourced from overseas. My wife actually works in procurement at an ag equipment company, and she's just sharing with me some of the challenges that they're having there. So we want to make sure that we're able to take advantage of those opportunities as well. The other thing we want to do is make sure that we may have some dry powder as well if we want to look into arrangements from outside parties to really help us grow and help our suppliers get paid on the terms that they want to be paid on as well. And so just all these different things in those mechanics, all these things need to align. And so there's dynamics there. And so any of these areas that are managed in silos are going to impact not only what comes in, the timing of when it's in and money out and how it goes out. We need to be making data-driven decisions in terms of all cash inflows and outflows. And now we have data and we have software. And so now we can really put data behind the intuition, right? Maybe especially on the purchasing side of things. And so this is just another diagram as well. I think this is just interesting when you look at the flows. It took me a long time to find a couple decent diagrams here to share. So again, happy to share the presentation with you. And so this also shows some of the places where you'll want to have some business agility. And so you need demand planning, right? So how you really make decisions on all levels, right, about your DPO, DSO, and inventory levels is based on, okay, what's the demand going to be? You can say demand / cash forecasting, right? What about our strategic planning? What does that mean from our FP&A side? What about our supply planning? What about our procurement strategy, our contracts, manufacturing? And so those of us in manufacturing know you can have delays in the supply chain. We might not be able to meet that demand. So that's maybe why we might want to keep some more in inventory. It might be new locations, amount of inventory, right? That's going to cost us, but what's the cost benefit to us? And then of course, as we start to look at margins as well, I think we need to make sure that we're watching those margins. We need to make sure that we are considering some transportation costs. And so especially when we look at sales and we start to look at margins where we have tight margins, we have goals for our margins. We might want to look, because obviously a lot of times people with a global supply chain, your margins are getting blown out the door when it costs you so much money to get a part that can hold up your manufacturing process. And so those are areas where we need to look at risk, variance, scenario analysis, and is there a way to mitigate the dynamics? And so the cost of having more in inventory, well, that's going to be more palatable to me than the risk of the delays in transportation, the time in transportation, not being able to meet the demand, and our reputation as well. So just a lot of dynamics to consider, but it's all about what I will call business agility, right? Do you have the relationships in place to pull those levers in terms of when you pay, when you get paid, but also on the funding side, the funding resources that I need? Do I have what I need? Do I have the dry powder that I need? What's the cost? What's the cost of the relationships? How long does it take to implement? And do I have the right tools in my toolbox? For me, if it's not going to cost me money to have the tool in my toolbox, then I'm definitely going to want to have that at my disposal as well, if nothing else. And so just some more research. Gartner said 38% of supply chain leaders are concerned their supply chains are not well positioned to challenges the next 2 years. That number probably has gone up. And so let me go ahead and get you guys to share your sentiments a little bit on whether or not you feel that your company's supply chain is well positioned to handle current and emerging challenges. Don't worry, this is an anonymous poll. Do you strongly agree that you are, kind of neutral on it? Do you disagree, or do you strongly disagree as well? And if you're in Treasury and finance and you don't know, this is your homework for you. I strongly encourage you to find out. Because for me, we were a little bit siloed way back in the day. I don't think I understood that part of it enough. And so I think it's really important that we take an active role in managing that supply chain, whether that's influencing it or taking direct control of that as well. So let me go ahead and leave that up for another few seconds. Then we'll go ahead and take a look at the results here, and then we'll go on to a little bit more research on supply chain. And so I've got some links in there. Those of you that want to know what's going on in terms of technology and supply chain management, there's some good surveys. I've got some links in there. So as always, I try and offer you some benchmarking and some additional analysis beyond my knowledge and my connections, even though I have a lot of conversations with Treasury and finance leaders. I'm gonna go ahead and close the polling question. Let's go ahead and, okay, well, I'm very pleasantly surprised that we only have 8% disagree or strongly disagree. I hope that is actually the case. Obviously, we would all like to be in the point where we strongly agree. And so hopefully I've given you some of the right questions to ask, inspired you to have conversations and do a little bit more research there. Again, where you stand depends on where you sit. And some of the value that I offer is helping you just think about something you might not have thought about, inspired you to have conversations that you weren't sure that you needed to have, and maybe inspiring you to invest a little bit more of your time in becoming more versed in certain areas, but especially in terms of your cash conversion cycle for our webinar today. So thank you so much. And just to kind of give you a little, not surprisingly, obviously companies are looking to leverage technology here. So we will call digital maturity. This is a survey by Gartner. It's a really good read. So the main point here is that I'm surprised that there are so many today that have digitized supply chain functions, which is great. But I think what you'll see is over the next 5 years, you're going to see all companies going this way. Again, depends on where you stand, depends on where you sit in terms of your products and services and your footprint and your manufacturing and distribution needs. So just some interesting research that I like to share with you. Supply chains must continually adapt to new technology, and so almost 1,000 respondents, so 43%. I think with those of us in manufacturing, the global presence, I think you have to do this. Doing it the best is going to be a competitive advantage, but if you don't optimize and control your supply chain, it's a competitive disadvantage. You are going to lose market share. You are going to lose your competitive advantage. Extremely important. Just some information on whether trade limits will hamper global supply chains. Again, this thing would change off the charts if we were doing this today, depending on what countries that you're in. So it's just something that you need to keep abreast of. So a lot of times in Treasury, I don't think we talk enough about the geopolitical risk that are going on and the regulatory risk. And so especially in looking in your supply chains, that's really important. So we need to keep our eyes on that as well. And then just an interesting survey or white paper that I found from Gartner again. And so over half of CEOs in supply chain intensive industries rank growth as a top 3 strategic priority. And 1/3 expect the supply chain to drive it. So wow, your CEOs expecting your supply chain to help drive that growth. And then the to your right just shows the importance of a CX investment, right? Customer-centric investment in terms of supply chain. And so those are just things that we need to take a look at. And just a lot of, again, there could be a lot of dry powder in terms of optimizing your supply chain and your relationships as well. So let's talk about funding opportunities. I talk about responding to friction. I think we've already talked about these things, but again, whether you're looking at your company's growth, what's your company's growth going to be, what are unexpected changes? We all start out the year with these expectations and growth, opportunities and challenges change, right? And some of your challenges come on the supply side and the customer side. So we need to understand, make sure that we have the people, place, systems, and obviously capital in place to respond. You need to understand your company's cost of capital, cash conversion cycle related just to Treasury and finance professionals. And so what are your funds? How are they being utilized? Are they being utilized as efficiently as possible? Can we take more control over those funds, the timing, right, of going out and coming in? It could be even things like your intercompany payments, your use of foreign currencies, right? Operations overseas. You should have visibility into your existing discount opportunities on the payables side. It almost always makes sense to take that just in terms of what your present conditions are, but it can also make sense for you to borrow funds to take advantage of the discount opportunities. You need to accurately forecast your payables and inventories needs. You need to accurately forecast your demand, AR, and obviously when you get paid. So let's invest in that. So a lot of times having a better idea, more predictability is going to allow us to take advantage of opportunities maybe for growth, and we might not have to borrow in order to do that. And we need to look at levers that we have, right? You might need to be adjusting when you pay, getting paid as soon as you can. So let's put more science behind cash inflows and outflows, and that will give us often give us business agility, especially those larger companies, or if you have a big volume of payments, or sometimes if you have really bulky payments, if you have a concentration of customers or supply chain going out, we really need that flexibility, and this can really enhance our need to borrow. And so obviously See what I call funding opportunities, cash flow timing. I guess that's internal funding. We can have secured debt, unsecured debt, and equity. That's a different webinar. Just wanted to kind of get that out there. Real quick, just some funding opportunities. We're seeing the capital markets, right? We are seeing records in terms of syndicated loans and leveraged loans. In 2001, I haven't seen anything. Well, maybe the current global crisis may tamper that down, but just because this doesn't mean that money is easy for your company to get, it doesn't mean it's efficient for your company to use those types. And so let's talk about some typical funding headaches. For me, I'll talk about this mostly. I'm from Treasury and having that bank lending facility. We have paperwork, right? Just applications, paperwork, legal fees, administration, time to close a deal, timing of receipt to get funds, and then scalability and flexibility. So do you have flexibility in your borrowing when you get money? Can you scale that up or down? If you have committed line, uncommitted line, even if you have committed line, can you actually get access to that line of credit? In 2008, some of us found out you couldn't. And so what I'm seeing is some innovation in sales finance. There are solutions that offer a multi-funder model instead of only with maybe let's say with a bank with just one bank. It can be a consortium of banks and its investors. There's a lot less documentation. There's a 4 to 8 week time to set up. Some of these solutions offer an incremental source of unsecured credit. And then this gives you the flexibility to cover unforeseen, meaningful working capital swings, or if you have secured debt covenant ratio pressures, so things that you can or can't control, you missed on your forecast. So this type of solution and platform that facilitates this type of arrangement is really offering you business agility. Really quickly, let's just look at a buyer who wants to extend their payables. This buyer wants to defer payment on the batch of supplier invoices, and then the supplier can use the fund to spend on goods, services, or software with one or more suppliers. So it's not restricted. A lot of times the arrangements, supply chain financing, are restricted to just one supplier. So this can go to one or more suppliers, and then the buyer can select, right? The tenor, oftentimes there's no change to existing supplier contracts. There's no security required. This complements your working capital resources, and then it gives you an incremental capacity to take advantage of those early pay or volume discounts. So this really facilitates your business agility, and these are established markets, and this is just a niche in the market that has been there, and it's becoming much more of a need given all the geopolitical dynamics and that we're seeing right now. So I think this is something that really is something that you would really want to consider investigating and adding to your toolbox there. So what about our recommendations for actions? Cash conversion cycle, commit to understanding your new AP and AR challenges, adopt that customer service-led mentality across the cash conversion cycle, facilitate collaboration, invest in that cash forecasting, invest in technology, make more educated decisions on all your cash movements, and then adopt funding types that will enhance business agility, just like the sales finance solution I just showed you. Let me go ahead and launch our final polling question here as I make some closing comments. These are the key takeaways for you, right? Companies can and should control how and when they make payments. You should control how and when you get paid, right? Technology facilitates visibility across all parts of the cash conversion cycle. Collaborative supplier and customer relationship drive cash conversion cycle optimization. And first and foremost, business agility matters more than ever. And so you have some inherent business agility. A lot of times when you look at optimizing your AP and AR operations, but also your funding sources as well. So all those things are incredibly important. So I'll give you guys another 15 seconds or so. Please answer the polling question. Really very much appreciate my webinar partner today, Levantor and their commitment to thought leadership. Look for more thought leadership resources. They will have them on their website, and I know they would be happy to speak with you about what they're doing and making disruption in the marketplace for sales finance. Let me go ahead and close polling question. Just want to give everyone a quick reminder, the Treasury Professional Development Virtual Forum, March 17th, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's all about your professional development. The only event, first ever, that's all about your professional development in Treasury. Of course, it's valuable for finance and anyone else as well. Hope you have a chance to take a look at the Treasury verse, the evolution of the podcast. Finally, I want to thank each and every one of you for your valuable time. I value each and every one of you. Make the rest of your day great.